Super Rugby 2025, folks, has a revamped format. With the demise of the Melbourne Rebels last year, or this year, we will not see them in 2025, and they are not being replaced. So we continue on with 11 teams in Super Rugby for 2025. There's a bit of talk about bring back the Jaguares from Argentina, bring back the Cheetahs. If they are going to bring in a team, it's going to take them more than the kind of half year that they've got to get things organized. So it's 11 teams for 2025, and it's a revamped finals format. So gone, thank goodness, is the 8-team format which we had before, where 8 out of 12 teams made the playoffs, which was a bit of a joke, although they've replaced it with something which, for mine, is somewhat baffling. They've added complexity where no complexity was needed, but we'll get to that in a second. We'll go through the changes of the structure for the 2025 season, and you guys can let us know your thoughts. In terms of the regular season, it is going to start a week earlier, so it's going to be 14 games for each of the sides. You play everybody at least once. You play 6 of the teams once, and you play 2 of the teams twice. So you'll play 14 games, and you will play, or you have 2 weeks off with buys. So it's a week longer than it was last year. So it's a little bit of that kind of imbalance. It'd be nice to either play everybody once or everybody twice, but we're kind of stuck in the middle with that one. So it's a round longer, and there's no super round this year. And I think most of us will agree that the super round was a bit of a joke for the last couple of years. It was in Melbourne. I know they were working with the kind of Melbourne local government, have it kind of partially sponsored or whatever. So they were able to get some cash out of it, but the attendances were kind of average at best. And the super round wasn't all that super. So the super round is gone. We just have kind of regular home and away. So each team will have 7 home games and 7 away games. That's kind of at least nicely balanced. Where things, I think, get a little bit messy is the playoff format. And like I said, the fact that it was 8 from 12 teams making the playoffs last year or this year and the season before was a joke, because the playoffs are supposed to be the best of the best, not the dregs. But we've now got just over half the teams making the playoffs, with the top 6 sides making the playoffs. Now, the problem with 6 teams, like if you get 1 versus 6, 2 versus 5, 3 versus 4, that's fine for the first round, but then you're left with 3 sides. How do you work that out? They've introduced a lucky loser component, where one of the losing sides from the first round will still make the playoffs. So if 1 plays 6 and 1 win, 2 plays 5 and 2 wins, then basically both 3 and 4 are going to go through. Doesn't really matter. If 1 loses, well, 1 is guaranteed to make the next round, because no matter what, they are going to be the highest seeded losing team because they are the number 1 rank. So 4 teams will still make the semifinals after this qualifying round. Lucky loser. It's baffling to me that they didn't just go teams 1 and 2, you have a week off, you're straight to the semis, you host the semifinal, and the other 4 teams can play off for the rights to play you guys in the semifinals. It's baffling to me they didn't go with that one. But I can only imagine they wanted the extra playoff game, because if you give the first 2 qualifying teams a bye, you only end up with kind of 2 games for the opening qualifying round, 2 games for the semifinals, and then 1 final. Whereas this, you get 3 qualifying games, then 2 semifinals, then a final. So you get an extra game, which is an extra broadcast, and it's more tickets sold. Like if you're the number 1 ranked team, you potentially get to host 3 games instead of 2. So maybe they feel like going straight into a bye round is a punishment because you don't get those gate sales. But I don't know. It seems baffling to me that you want the casual fan to understand that the team that just got beaten last week is somehow still playing in the next round when it's supposed to be the knockout stages. For mine, that is a bizarre choice. Now, to add to the complexity, the lucky loser does get punished by having their ranking lowered by 1 spot. So, if you're the number 1 qualifying side and somehow you lose to side number 6 in the first qualifying game, your ranking in the semifinals goes down to rank number 2. So you are ranked lower because you lost your qualifying final. So if 1 and 2 still end up in the final, but 1 had lost their opening game against number 6, so the 2 would host the final. Do you get what I mean about how this is? I get it, but if I'm going to try and explain this to my friend who doesn't follow Super Rugby, I'm not going to find a way to explain it very clearly. It's a bizarre choice. But that's how the qualifying is going to go. So the fact that there's no longer 2/3 of the teams making the playoffs is good for mine. The fact that they've introduced a lucky loser to go through to the next round and added a layer of complexity for mine, that gets a thumb down. I don't think that's a wise move. I think keeping it simpler, rewarding the top 2 qualifying teams with a week off would have been a good reward for them. And that being said, it also creates a storyline of who's going to be sharper, the team that's just had a good rest for a week or the team which is battle-hardened, having had to play through the first qualifying round. I think that's a storyline in itself. I think that makes for a simpler system and good storylines. So that's just my take on it. That is the change. Ultimately, no more Super Round. We are a week longer for the overall regular season. And you've got a slightly more complex playoff format, albeit with thankfully fewer teams this time. That's Super Rugby 2025. You guys let us know your thoughts. What would be your preferred playoffs format? Are you pretty happy with this lucky loser system? Do you hope they bring in another team at some point so they can go back to 12 sides to kind of have it a balanced league? Because 11 is an odd number and makes things a little bit harder for the administrators. You guys let us know your thoughts. Subscribe to the channel if you want more rugby content. There will certainly be more on the way. Take care of yourselves and talk to you guys again soon. See you later.